Welcome to my channel. Today, a step-by-step tutorial. I'll be playing with stencil butters and two new sign stencils from TCW. Here's a sneak peek of the completed page. And just so you know, I will be using my art journal process cards at the end of the video to recap all the steps. So here are the two sign stencils that I'm using and the stencil butters. I'm using Blowing Leaves and Musical Notes. The stencil butters are gamboge, fuchsia, crimson, orchid, and marigold. And I'm using my 7x10 Canson Mixed Media page. Now, normally I put the stencil butters through a stencil with a palette knife. But today I'm going to rub them onto the page in a different way, and you're going to get this burnished look. What I'm also doing is taking advantage of their total blendability. Look, when I add the purple and the red, the crimson, I get this burgundy color. I get this copper color when I mix orange and the purple. So don't be afraid to mix the colors with the stencil butters and get some amazing other tones. So I'm really just blending this on the page with my finger. You can mix them ahead of time, but I like the variety that you get. And because I'm going for a fall colored, fall inspired page, I'm not too worried if I make a little bit of brown, but I know that if I put the purple and the yellow together, I'm really going to get a lot of brown. So I'm trying to avoid that. And you just let those colors dry or don't put them next to each other. I just want to make this fall colored throughout. And I'm rubbing it, and you get this shine and shimmer. Stencil butters are the consistency of soft butter. If it's sitting on the counter, they go through the stencils wonderfully well. But I thought I'd showcase another way of using them and taking advantage of some of the amazing properties they have. This pearlescent, this shimmer. When they go down, they're fairly opaque, which means they will block whatever's behind it, which is why I didn't do any stamping or stenciling first. I'm trying to get different colors. And if I get too much of one color, I can come back and add the stencil butter on top. And if you don't want it to blend, let whatever color's underneath dry, and you'll get great coverage. You can also mix other regular acrylic paints with the stencil butters to change the colors if you need to or wish to. You might lose some of the pearlescence depending on how much of the other color, the acrylic paint, you mix in with it. Now look at that shine and shimmer. Can we just say OMG, yum? Here I'm just adding a little bit more yellow, the gamboge color, to it. Now I want to add contrast. So I'm going to do stenciling with black. And I'm using this Musical Notes sign stencil, not to create a sign, but I'm running it through the middle of my page. I'm using black acrylic paint, and I'm tapping off to the side so that it's not a wet sponge. And I might put one or two coats of it. Take your time with stenciling, you'll be much happier. I know we think if we put more paint on the applicator, we're just going to speed up the process, but typically you're going to end up with a lot of bleed through. I love this musical notes sign stencil, the scale of it. I do not have another stencil or another stamp where I could get the musical notes that are going to be as prominent as they are on this page. So I can see using this sign stencil in on a lot of pages. Now there we have it through the back, and loving the contrast. That black with those shiny stencil butters works. Now this is called Blowing Leaves, and I am stenciling with the black paint again onto just white copy paper. You could do this on mixed media paper. I'm going to stencil and cut the focal images. So I'm going to use these leaves. Now, the background is the actual colors of what you would be thinking the leaves are. So I'm reversing that, but it's still giving the impression that the leaves are that color. So once I've stenciled out enough of this and I know which leaves I really like, I am going to just cut them apart a little bit and go sit in front of the TV and fussy cut. I'm going to leave a little bit of a border around them just for more contrast. So once I've finished cutting out all of them, I am playing with where I want them. And when I have a basic idea, I'm thinking about what kind of sentiment I want. And I got some fall ones, music ones, things that are tying with the theme and where I really was inspired. So I've printed these off. I'm thinking about doing a sentiment pack on the seasons. If you're interested, leave that in the comment section below. So I'm cutting them out, the sentiments out typically, and I leave them in the blocks. And then I may cut them out more and play with the composition and placement. Every page is different. So I could cut this out as a strip. And I actually like this better than the block, but I like the boldness of the font that I've used. Here's the other one. The Earth Has Music for those who listen. I really like how that ties in to the musical notes in the background. Or For Everything There Is a Season. So I decide to leave this as a block because I want that contrast on the page and it ties in with everything that's there. So I'm edging it. I want to frame it. So I'm using the black acrylic paint that I have on my makeup sponge from doing all the stenciling. And I'm just very carefully putting that on. You can use black archival ink for this. I just already have this out, so that's why I'm using it. Just be careful not to smudge. And I've placed it just a little off center. Now the rest of the sentiments I'm going to put into a plastic folder, maybe even with the excess leaves, and it'll be ready for another project. Just add it to my stash, so I never worry about cutting out too much. Now that my placement is done, I am reaching under, putting some fluid matte medium underneath, and then adhering all the elements down. Now, they typically say when you're working on a focal image, you want odd numbers, 3, 5, 7. Well, here I have 4, but the sentiment acts as the 5th one because I've kept it all together. And that's why I think that it works. I'm just not gluing it down where I have the tape at the top because I know I'm going to have to cut that off. So I'm just kind of bending it back, and in a minute you're going to see me cutting it off. Now you can do a similar page, different colors in the background, same musical notes, put butterflies or dragonflies into the musical notes, pick a different sentiment. That's what I mean about using that musical notes sign stencil. And change your focal image. I'm edging the page using the floating acrylic or shading technique. And I'm using black acrylic paint with my angle brush. If you want to learn how to shade, just search for my shading video when you're in my YouTube channel. I'm shading around the sentiment as well, just to give it a little bit more weight. And I decided, no, I'm not going to go around the leaves. Thought it might make a difference. I'm just going to splatter with gold because, well, you can't have too much shimmer. I have the gold pre-mixed in a little container because I do a lot of splattering. And it's typically with black, white, or gold. Make sure you dry the splatter. They do take a little time. Now I'm heating up the tape here, and that will make it let go without ripping your page or your paper. Look at that shimmer. So let's do the recap. So I applied a base coat of color, not with acrylic paints this time, but I rubbed on and blended my stencil butters, and I used 5 different colors, and I made even more colors out of that. If you haven't tried stencil butters, you really do need to. I used pretty much half the color wheel from the purple all the way to the yellow to give me that fall look. I stenciled the musical notes stencil with black to give you that contrast, especially with these bright shimmery colors. It looks so good. Then I stenciled onto paper and I cut it out to create my focal image. Remember, you can do that with your stencils. And again, I use black and white. And this stencil has both the positive and negative leaf shapes. I added the sentiment to the page, picking a font that was bold and black. And I edged the page and I splattered. I hope you love this page as much as I do. Now, take something from this video and go get creative.